Terefayina yaffe.
Somera mu ddiiro lyo ng'ewagiddwa Maryland High School erisangibwa Entebbe. Ssomero ly'abawala n'abalenzi tusomesa arts and sciences okuviira ddala ku siniya esooka okutuukira ddala ku siniya ey'omukaaga nga lisangibwa mu kifo ekiweweevu obulungi. Tulina ebisuula eby'omulembe, science laboratory ssaako ne computer lab wamu ne.
She gives you her number, but your pen didn't work and the bus is gone. Get a pen you can rely on. Big Crystal, the long-lasting pen with perfect ink flow.
Wamune.
Green Hill Academy has high standards of learning and the teachers are very good. They give you a sense of belonging.
Green Hill has helped me to discover my talent.
The environment is good.
Encouraged us children to be excellent.
Wamune.
Combo University, a private chartered university that offers world-class education at all levels, including certificates, diplomas, bachelor's and master's degrees. Our courses include computing and IT, law, journalism, nursing, business administration, education, fashion and design, and many more. Admissions for the August 2020 intake are still open. Will you join us?
Wamune.
Kids Kingdom Kindergarten and Daycare. Somero ly'abaana bato. Omuzadde leeta omwana ogenda okola ebibyo. Ebyokuzannyisa by'abaana byonna mu nsi tubirina. Ate nga abaana we bazannyira wagazi nnyo. Jjukira security enka. Amasomero gonna gali mu kikomera. Abasomesa be tulina bakugu mu baana. Abaana tubaliisa bulungi nnyo munnange. Tulina main campus e Buddo Naggalabi nga bwakayisa Buddo Junior.
Yes, good morning to all of you, my fellow students. I want to welcome you to this Saturday morning. We are here for a physics lesson, and today we shall be discussing a new topic. I told you physics has 4 sections, A, B, C, and D. We have so far discussed Section B, which has waves and optics as wave as an optic. We have discussed Section D, which has partly electrostatics and electricity. And I want us to move to Section A today, as you see in the background, which has optics. So today we shall be dealing with optics, but I want to remind you that as we proceed to discuss and look at opportunities and ways how we can improve our performance in physics, today we shall be looking at optics. Optics is a branch in physics that looks at the relationship of how people see activities. In other words, it is a branch that enables us to be able to see. I usually tell my students that some people actually look, but they don't see. So optics is one of the areas we are going to look at. It deals with light. Some people call it light. Some people call it light. And this appears in Section A with 2 questions, and candidates are expected to do only one number. Only one number. We shall move straight away and look at a few salient issues on Section A. Section A deals with the issue of light. But before I start, as usual, I want to remind you that the major function of the brain is to forget. The major function of the brain, I repeat, is to forget. And the simple meaning is that if you don't remind the brain, it will forget. It will forget. Let us ask ourselves, what is light? We all see because there is light. Whether you know physics or not, you see because of light. When we are looking at forms of energy, light is one of them. We define light as a form of energy that enables us to see, or a form of energy that causes the sensation of sight. If simply put, we can say light is a form of energy that enables us to see. A form of energy that enables us to see. And when we are looking at light, we look at another question. What is a ray? I want to inform my dear students that today's lesson will run through all classes. Yes, I am aware this is 510 stroke 2. But what I'm going to discuss is going to run from senior 2, senior 5, and senior 6. And my fellow learners, I don't want to encourage you to say I know all this and I should go and sleep. Please take note. It is what we actually think we know that normally comes and finds some students unprepared. A ray can be simply defined as a path taken by light. A path taken by light. Illustrated diagrammatically by a line with an arrow. By a line with an arrow. When we move from a ray, the next important question is a beam. What is a beam? A beam is a correction of light rays. A beam is a correction of light rays. A correction of light rays. Now, when we move from that point, we look at types of beams. We have three types of beams. One is a convergent beam. To converge is to come to one point. To converge is to come to one point. And if we look at light rays, as we have said, a ray is a direction or a path taken by light. If light rays are converging at a point A, then we say it's a convergent beam. The other beam is a divergent. To diverge is the opposite of a convergent beam. I can say it is the same diagram, but we simply change the arrow, that the light moves from one point but moves to another point. Convergent, I usually relate it with the situation where we are probably in a time in school, a school setting where we are, for example, out of break time, and they ring the bell and you are expected to go back to class. So if you look at A as a classroom, you will all be expected to go back to class. And divergent, if you look at, again, A as a classroom, and you are expected to go for break time or lunch time, then you are all supposed to disperse away from point A and move to your areas of interest. Then lastly, we have a beam that we call a parallel beam. For a parallel beam, I usually use different diagrams. It could be drawn in that pattern. It could be drawn in this pattern. It could be drawn in that pattern, as long as you indicate that it is a correction of light rays. Without an arrow, remember that you are actually not illustrating a beam. Without an arrow, remember you are not illustrating a beam. We have said a beam is a collection of light rays, and a ray is simply a line with an arrow that shows a ray that shows the direction where the light is going. So a beam, we have three types of beams. As I said, this can be captured by a senior 2 student, senior 1/3 term, and a senior 5 student, and of course a senior 6 student. I expect most of you to have gone through this area, but I want us to revise. The major function of the brain, I repeat, is to forget. Now, when we finish this, we usually bring about the principle of reversibility of light. To reverse is to change direction and move in the opposite direction. The principle of reversibility of light simply states that light rays are reversible. It simply states that light rays are reversible. That means that if one is able to block the direction of path of light, then the light would retrace its way back to where it is actually coming from, or to the source. If someone blocks this light ray, or this light ray which is divergent, it would be able to be refracted and it goes back to point A. So the principle of reversibility of light states that light rays are reversible. Light rays are reversible. We talk about refraction on plane surfaces next. Refraction on plane surfaces. And I believe every serious human being, every serious, I use the word serious, usually look at themselves before they move out of the house. What do they use? They use a mirror. How can you form a simple mirror? You can form a simple mirror by simply blocking one face of a glass, either using a book or using an object that we say is opaque. So if I blocked one's face by shading as I have done, I would form what I would call a simple mirror. And a simple mirror has this side as, we call it the silvered surface, and this side as the reflecting surface. In other words, the glass surface. So if light is incident in a ray that I will call OA, if this point is A, it will indeed be reflected off in another ray that we shall shortly label. But the point where the ray meets the glass, which I have called A, is incident at 90 degrees. The ray is incident at 90 degrees. And that simple diagram you see gives us a number of points that we need to identify with. As starting students, 1, this angle is given a letter I scientifically. This angle is given a letter R scientifically. And this angle is given a letter G. And by angle geometry, this angle is also equal to G. So to label that diagram, we can start and say that angle I, which one could call angle OAG, N is the angle of incidence. Angle R, which one could call angle if I call this point M and this M prime, I'll call that one angle B A M is the angle of refraction. The other angle we indicate there, I've called it G. This is the same as angle O A M prime, which is the same as this is angle N A B. Angle O A M prime is the same as angle B A M, and this is the same as the glancing angle. Glancing angle. In ordinary level physics, some questions can be asked. In ordinary level physics, some questions can be asked. I will refer to this later. We have AN. Point AN is the normal line. It's a normal line. OA is the incident ray. AB is the refracted ray. And the point A is the point of incidence. The point of incidence. And of course, M prime is the plane mirror. I want to repeat that the plane mirror has two faces. It has the refracting face, which I have labeled as this side, and the silvered surface, which I have labeled as the other side. The concept I'm looking at today is extremely important, especially for all physics students. This does not exclude the level of students. It covers all students that are offering physics, starting from senior 1, including primary 7. The physics I'm discussing today caters for all levels of students, whether primary, whether secondary, even university. It is basic science knowledge. Now, after we have finished looking at the basics of optics, we look at the laws of what we call reflection. I have said every human being, whether you know physics or not, many times look at a mirror to look at how they look like. But the mirror does not only show you your image, what you see through the mirror is your image. And I want to emphasize that if you want to be excellent, you want to be successful, look at the mirror. Look at the person you are seeing through the mirror and feel like you want to be like that person. feel like you want to be like that person. Of course, what you see is your image. If you want to be like that person, then you must be admiring who that person is. There are two laws of refraction, two of them. I don't want to say this is the first law, the second law, but we say that the angle of refraction is equal to the angle of incidence. I have said angle I is equal to angle R to emphasize. And I will put that if this was my mirror, I have mentioned this. This may be common in ordinary level. I can choose to put this as 30 degrees. If I put this as 30 degrees and I shade this side, then I am referring to a mirror. Without shading, whatever I had drawn would not be physics. If this is a normal, ideally this is supposed to be 90 degrees, as I emphasize that. And that means that if this was x, my x would be equal to I. And my x, therefore, plus 30 degrees mathematically would be equal to 90, and therefore my x would be equal to 60 degrees by calculation. And therefore my angle of incidence would be equal to 60 for an O-level student. This is very rare for A-level, but you need to know the concept. That this x, because of this law, is supposed to be equal to y. That x, therefore, is equal to y and is equal to 60 degrees in accordance with this law of refraction, that the angle of refraction is equal to the angle of incidence, mathematically. And I can even emphasize that x in this particular case, that not x, that the glancing angle is therefore equivalent to 30 degrees, which I could call G here. By angle properties, the value of the glancing angle is 30, and consequently, if this is x, then the whole of this should also be 90. But this is the glancing angle, and therefore it is 30 degrees. That is good for ordinary level students, for primary 7 students in their PLE or primary 6, 7. There are two laws of refraction. We have simply stated one, and we have said that the angle of incidence, which would be I here, is equal to the angle of refraction, which would be R. The second one states that the incident ray the normal is not a ray, and the refracted ray at the point of incidence lie in the same plane. I repeat, the incident ray, the normal, and the reflected ray at the point of incidence all lie in. I want to emphasize the in because that is the point where students usually fail from. They all lie in the same plane. They all lie in the same plane. The incident ray, the normal, it's a line, doesn't have an arrow, remember from the start, and the refracted ray. At this point, which we call the point of incidence, I had called it point A, lie in the same plane. And at this stage, I will give my first assignment. My first assignment is that my candidates of Senior 6 and S5 and S4 should be able to verify an experiment or to describe an experiment to verify the two laws of refraction as simply stated. Describe an experiment to verify the laws of refraction. I will give a hint and then we shall proceed. I will give a hint and then we shall proceed. If you are asked a question to describe the laws of refraction of light, 1, you definitely must use what we call a softboard. You must use a softboard. This is apparatus. I will emphasize on the apparatus required. You must use a softboard. Two, you must use drawing pins. These are sometimes called safety pins. The safety pins are supposed to fix a plain sheet of paper. On the softboard. You must use, of course, a plain mirror. And you must use optical pins. I think I carried one optical pin here, which I should be able to demonstrate. Now, an optical pin, the camera may not be able to show it clearly because of the distance, but looks like this. And this is an optical pin. Then this one is a safety pin. This safety pin can work as the thumbnail pin. The thumbnail pin is the pin that can be used in the place of what I have called the safety pin. This one, very small. But we have other short pins that we call thumbnail that are used for most offices that are used on notice boards to fix items. Now, this one is the optical, and this one can represent, for those who do not have thumbnail pins, can represent a safety pin. Now, I said I am simply illustrating what you require to describe or to verify this experiment. And I will use a simple diagram and then I will proceed. After having these items, assuming this blackboard is my softboard, fix. The softboard is a small piece of a board that is supposed to be soft, popularly used for making seedings during the old time of that nature. Fix on a plain sheet of paper. If you don't have enough safety pins 2 pins can be alternately used to fix that plain paper there. If you have enough, you can put a pin on either side. And then we usually say draw a horizontal line that is going to act as our mirror line. And then you use, the other important thing we need to use here is, we call it, I can call it plasticine. Plasticine. And if you don't have plasticine, you can actually use chewing gum or bubble gum. To fix the mirror is supposed to be mounted vertically facing the observer on one side. So if the mirror is mounted vertically, it means it would be standing vertically at 90 degrees. And therefore the silvered surface would be touching the board. And then using a protractor, the other important apparatus is a protractor. Using a protractor, a beginning incident ray, I would say of 10 degrees is drawn. When we say draw a ray, you simply put your protractor there and you measure your 10 degrees there. And then you remove the protractor and draw the ray up to that point. Observing from this side or this face, another ray is identified using 2 pins. So we have 2 pins here, P1 and P2. Using pins P3 and P4 from this side, because we assume that this is silvered, another ray is identified whereby if the observer is here, they are actually able to see the images of these pins by what we would call parallel refraction. The image would appear to be there, and the image of that one would appear to be there, and that ray can be obtained. Through experiment, the student is expected to measure these angles. This one is measured, say 10. So the student by experiment is expected to find the different values of these other angles. Assume this is 15, this is 20. The student is expected to complete a table of results where they should be able to verify that the angle they get through experiment, which is R here, is actually approximately equal to the angle they used here as I. And several other angles can be measured, and by repeating through observation on the other side, the other rays can be obtained. And finally, a graph, if it is to be plotted, of I against R should be able to give a straight line, passing through the origin, verifying that actually angle I is equal to angle R. In other words, the slope one gets should approximately be equal to 1 if the graph is sketched. That briefly describes the experiment that one can carry out to verify. It is important that students are able to read and master the steps they should use to describe this experiment to that effect, because it is an exam question. After that, we need to look at refraction types or types of refraction. Ideally, there are 2 types of refraction. And these two types are regular. Someone would use the word uniform. Regular or uniform refraction. And the other type can be irregular or diffuse refraction. Again, at ordinary level and A level, it is a common question that students can be asked to distinguish between regular and diffuse refraction. Students can be asked to distinguish between these two types. Distinguish between regular and diffuse refraction. Yeah, to attempt to answer this question, regular refraction is the type of refraction where light rays the light rays are incident. First of all, we must indicate that this is a mirror. The light rays are incident on the mirror in a parallel mode, and they are reflected off again in a parallel mode. A student is expected to use a ruler to illustrate this, given that light travels in a straight line. The incident rays are parallel, and the reflected rays are also parallel. The mirror is smooth. It is smooth. The reflecting surface is smooth for regular refraction. That is number one. Two, distinguish between regular and diffuse. For diffuse refraction, comparatively, the incident light rays, one distinction is the light rays are parallel. Here, the incident light rays are parallel, yes, for diffuse, but they are reflected because the reflecting surface is non-uniform. Contrary to the situation here, this one is non-uniform, so the reflected rays are scattered. They are scattered. They are scattered. Reflected rays are scattered. There are two differences emphasized here already. That one, the reflecting surface is smooth for regular refraction, and two, the reflecting surface is non-uniform. Two, the incident parallel rays are reflected parallel. Here, the incident parallel rays are reflected in different direction or in scattered directions. In different directions or in scattered directions. So if they ask you to distinguish between regular and diffuse refraction, one, incident light rays are parallel upon reflection for smooth or regular refraction. Incident parallel rays are reflected in divergent or scattered directions. The reflecting surface is smooth. The reflecting surface is non-uniform or irregular. And by the way, what most students don't know, and they usually confuse, is that the laws of refraction that we stated at the start are always obeyed, irrespective of whether the surface is smooth or irregular. The laws of refraction, for example, if someone put a normal here, the angle of I measured here should be in agreement with the angle of R. And the same thing should happen here, irrespective of the surface. The laws of refraction are obeyed. They are obeyed. And of course, we are saying that the surface is uniform, the surface is non-uniform, the incident parallel rays are reflected to give parallel reflected rays. Incident parallel rays are reflected to give divergent reflected rays. The next important fact that we are going to share here is deviation of light. Deviation of light. What is to deviate? Deviate is an English word. Deviation of light. To deviate is to change from your original, if I use language, from your original statement to something different. Now, if we have light, we have seen that light can be refracted if it is incident. And it is refracted to a known direction. If this is light, a light ray OA, where A is the point of incidence, it is reflected to pass through another ray, which I can call a beam. And we have seen from our previous information during our introduction that this is angle I, and this is the glancing angle. Assuming there was no mirror here, this light would not have been reflected to pass through AB, so it would continue into the direction I am extrapolating. Now, the angle that is made between the would-be direction, assuming there was no mirror, and the direction in the presence of the mirror is what we call the angle of deviation. If I call this D, D is the angle of deviation. D in this case is the angle of deviation. But using angle geometry, I will emphasize here that if I have this and I extrapolate it, I like emphasizing while I'm teaching that if I extrapolate this and this angle is G, like it is in the upper diagram, this angle is equal and opposite to this angle. Equal and opposite this angle. That means that this small angle here is G, the one below the mirror and between the extrapolated incident ray. This small angle here is G. But if this ray is reflected there, and we have discussed together the laws of refraction, that if you put a mirror here and you put a normal, this angle is equal to that angle. So if the normal is there and this is I, it implies that this is also I. Ideally, we know it is R, but for the laws of refraction, we have stated that I is equal to R. That implies that if this is 90, this one, and this is G and this is G, and this is I and this is I, by simple angle geometry, this would also be G. Therefore, the whole of this angle, which I'm calling the angle of deviation, D, would be G plus G. And therefore, our angle of deviation is always supposed to be equal to twice the glancing angle. It is always supposed to be equal to twice the glancing angle. It is always supposed to be equal to twice the glancing angle. Of course, we could show that more scientifically by taking a few statements that may go beyond what I've described. The angle of deviation for an incident ray making an angle G with the mirror is equivalent to G plus G, which is 2 times the glancing angle. You can be asked to show that the angle of deviation is twice the glancing angle. Now, if we look at rotation, rotation of the mirror, assume this is our mirror, and we already have the angle of incidence as I, the glancing angle as G, and automatically the angle of refraction. This is R. If this is A, and this is O, and this is B, if this mirror is rotated, it can be rotated in the clockwise direction or in the anti-clockwise direction. Assuming we rotate it in the anti-clockwise direction from position M1 to another position, say that position. Let me call this position 1 and this position 2. If it is rotated to position 2, it is usually rotated through an angle, say theta. It implies if it is rotated without changing the position of the incident ray, then the incident ray will also rotate to give us a new position, which I will call position 2, if this was position 1. We are assuming the mirror has been rotated to this new position through an angle theta. This is still theta by alternate, without changing the incident ray. Usually we say that show that the angle between the initial reflected ray and the new reflected ray will be twice the angle of rotation. First of all, case 1, I'll write it as D1. We have seen it is 2G. Now, case 2, it is very clear that all of you can see with me that our glancing angle now is G plus theta, because the mirror is now assumed to be in this position. So the glancing angle is the angle the incident ray makes with the mirror. It is now G plus theta. Now our task is, if this ray was to continue going through like that, our first D is this one, which I have called D1. Our next D is now supposed to be this one, which I will call D2. So our task is to find D2. Diagrammatically, if this is G plus theta and this is I remains I have said the reflected ray shifts here, and therefore this I is supposed to be equal to this R now. But if this is G plus theta, our task is to show that D2 minus D1 is equal to what? Remember, our D1 is clear. Now our D2, which is the whole of this, is what we need to get. And of course, basing on the diagram I have, majority of you will not be able to follow the proceedings here. This that I am trying to follow is the new position of the mirror, and that would imply that the whole of this is supposed to be G plus theta, because it is still a glancing angle. It is still a glancing angle. If the mirror shifts here, it's supposed to be equal to that. Now our task is to find out the whole of this. But remember, this is G and this is theta, so it is still G plus theta. So our D2 actually will become, of course, for students, you're expected to use a little more illustrations. But I've said if this is the mirror position, from the mirror to the new reflected ray is G plus theta. But again, below the mirror to this extrapolated incident ray is supposed to be G plus theta. So in the end result, our D2 is twice the glancing angle. And therefore, if we look at the net deviation, D will be equal to 2G plus 2 theta minus 2G, and we shall get our net deviation as 2 theta. Our net deviation would be 2 theta. Now, I am emphasizing that if a mirror is rotated through an angle, the angle of the reflected ray would rotate through twice the angle of deviation. As I wind up today's lesson, my dear students, I want to challenge you to look at applications of plane mirrors. Where are plane mirrors used? And also, as you look at the applications, I want to emphasize that one of them is the optical lever. The optical lever galvanometer, and The other one is what we call the sextant. And I want to emphasize that one question that is always very common here is the properties of plane mirrors. Look at properties of plane mirrors. Images. Properties of plane mirror images, and also look at applications of plane mirrors. You will appreciate that most of you, when you go to salons to cut your hair, many times you are seeing your images several times. And the reason you see those images is because there are several mirrors that are mounted on different walls in front and behind you. And those mirrors give what we call multiple reflections. When we meet next, we shall quickly look at applications, and we shall look at how many images a plane mirror can form, and we shall add live expressions to show that light reflected on inclined plane mirrors will be deviated as well, as we have seen this. If we have more than one mirror inclined to each other, then light can be deviated, and we shall be able to look at how do we derive the deviation expression. I want to thank you. I want to thank the management of BBS TV. I want to thank the gentleman on camera, my producer, and the management of BBS TV. I thank you. I thank you, my students, for waking up to follow these lessons. And for now onwards, we shall be looking at section A, which is basically optics, because I told you section paper 2 has 4 sections. We have so far discussed B, D, now we are on A. I wish you the best. God bless you.
somera mu ddiiro lyo ng'ewagiddwa Maryland High School erisangibwa Entebbe. Ssomero ly'abawala n'abalenzi tusomesa arts ne sciences okuviira ddala ku siniya esooka okutuukira ddala ku siniya ey'omukaaga nga lisangibwa mu kifo ekiweeweevu obulungi. Tulina ebisuula eby'omulembe, science laboratory ssaako ne computer lab wamu ne.
She gives you her number, but your pen didn't work and the bus is gone. Get a pen you can rely on. Big Crystal, the long-lasting pen with perfect ink flow.
Wamune.
Green Hill Academy has high standards of learning and the teachers are very good. They give you a sense of belonging.
Green Hill has helped me to discover my talent.
The environment is good.
Encouraged us children to be excellent.
Wamune.
Combo University, a private chartered university that offers world-class education at all levels, including certificates, diplomas, bachelor's and master's degrees. Our courses include computing and IT, law, journalism, nursing, business administration, education, fashion and design, and many more. Admissions for the August 2020 intake are still open. Will you join us?
Wamune.
Kids Kingdom Kindergarten and Daycare. Somero ly'abaana bato. Omuzadde leeta omwana ogenda okola ebibyo. Ebyokuzannyisa by'abaana byonna mu nsi tubirina. Ate ng'abaana we bazannyira wagazi nnyo. Jjukira security enka. Amasomero gonna gali mu kikomera. Abasomesa be tulina bakugu mu baana. Abaana tubaliisa bulungi nnyo munnange. Tulina main campus e Buddo Naggalabi nga bwakayisa Buddo Junior.